Hello and welcome everyone to Last Level Press. I'm Mr. Black, and I have some controversial news on the modding front to discuss with you all today, which I've chosen my words very carefully in my preparations for the coverage and discussion of. You may have recently heard that Valve removed the size limitations on uploads to the Steam Workshop, allowing for much larger, more content-rich mods to see the light of day there. However, it seems that announcement was a preface to something altogether more significant. The short of it is, Valve has recently announced that mod creators may now charge for their work on the Steam Workshop. I know some of you are already up in arms over this, and I understand some of you. However, I'm here to cover this news as even-handedly as I can, and I honestly think it's a double-edged sword, with some pros and cons inherent to the arrangement. I know the initial concern for many is, oh no, every modder's gonna move their work to the workshop and charge for it and stop updating and remove their mods from the Nexus entirely. It's the end of modding as we know it. Oh no! I hear you. I know you're concerned. But stop. Hold on. It's not as terrible as all that. And while yes, some modders will move shop, and some have already, a significant portion, especially of the established Nexus modding community, to say nothing of other more adult-oriented interests, will not, and there are a number of reasons for that. Some mods will simply never see their time on the workshop, and not just due to their mod authors not wanting them to for this reason or that, but because they can't. The same limitations that have always held the workshop back, sans the upload size now, continue to do so. Some mods require special installations, some require third-party programs, some mods are third-party programs and extensions, Steam still can't install ENBs, and some mods just are not compatible with current versions of the games they're for. So, at least for now, a sizable number of mods are staying right where they are, whether or not their modders that created them refuse to move due to their participation in that weird rivalry war that's always existed amongst Nexus users in the workshop, which frankly, I've never understood. Modding is all a matter of preference, and I prefer manual installations to automatic updates, thus I've preferred the Nexus, but I hardly disparage those who prefer differently, as I've never seen the point. And I know some are hearkening this development as the death knell of free modding, to which I shall simply direct you to check the day's recent free uploads to the Nexus. I can promise you, there are dozens of them, daily, and some of those are coming from the very same people who've recently received a lot of unwarranted vitriol for uploading paid mods to the workshop. I know, I checked. Moving on. Now, is this new system perfect? No, very far from it. As I understand it, little to no user accreditation exists to verify the identity of uploaders, and so there are already a number of users uploading mods they did not create and do not own, essentially pirating profits off the work of the original modders with little to no recourse. And make no mistake, until the system changes, this will continue to happen, and it will affect the reputations and untold numbers of modders as they get impersonated. Unfortunately, with the semi-anonymous nature of modding, with everyone using this handle or that, it's incredibly difficult, if not outright impossible, to actually verify the identities of modders for the purposes of determining who originally created a file that's uploaded, Valve's already terrible curation and quality control practices notwithstanding. And as for what's at stake, Valve has stated that the individual publishers who choose to allow Steam Workshop content to their games will set the revenue rates for the workshop content and who collects how much of a cut from them, though it is the modders themselves who will determine how much any given mod actually costs, how revenue is divided amongst contributors to mods, and a pay-what-you-want option is available for their selection. As yet, the only company that I'm aware of that has set such a rate is Bethesda, in which the publisher takes 75%, which is abhorrently steep for the record, the modder collects 25%, and Valve will collect the same small percentage ostensibly from the publisher's share that they do from all other microtransactions on Steam. However, the original modder is not cut a check until their proceeds exceed $100. Once you start crunching the numbers, you start to see that is not in their favor. I think it ought to end up closer to 50-50, and do away with the pay threshold in lieu of a direct deposit system, but that's neither here nor there. The system exists. It's at publisher discretion whether anyone likes it or not. Now, I realize that this entire scenario has recently raised a rather poignant question in the minds of many. One that I've read a few dozen rage debates regarding already, one that I've lost a significant respect for a significant number of people over, including some significant to the Nexus itself, and one that I'd like to weigh in on. And that question is, do modders deserve the option to make money off of their work? Yes. To assert otherwise is self-entitled, idealized nonsense, indicative of a near total lack of appreciation, understanding, or respect for just how much work goes into the creation of mods. Not all of them, I know. Someone's just gonna reskin an armor set in a couple of minutes and try to charge money for that, and it took them near nothing to do. I know they will, and you know they will. A quick scroll through the workshop already confirms that, and worse. However, you all know as well as I do, those cheap, ambitionless throwaway mods are exceedingly easy to identify, and if you think the numbers of people who download those for free on the Nexus are small already, just wait until people have to consider whether or not they're willing to pay for those. Spoilers! No one will. Steam's curation is notoriously abysmal. However, a couple of things. Even a simple user rating system like the one that's already in place will see that the vast majority of these cache-ins are rightfully ignored and voted down in short order. And on top of that, paid mods uploaded to the workshop do not immediately go on sale. They must undergo a 1-week waiting period intended to give users the chance to flag abusive or illegal content, Valve allowing their users to continue to actually curate their own work. Not an ideal system. However, it will give the community a chance to curate things to some degree, seeing as Bethesda and Valve have declined that they will not do it themselves. And as a sort of editorial addendum, there seems to be a prevailing attitude, which I find relevant in the discussion of this entire issue, this perception of modders as nothing more than charitable hobbyists who, for some reason, shouldn't morally accept any form of payment short of maybe the occasional voluntary donation for their work, and I'm sorry to say, that is just not the case. I can't speak for everyone, and I don't presume to. But practically speaking, the reason that many modders haven't charged for their work until now is not necessarily because they were against doing so, but because they weren't allowed to. Until now, it was actionably illegal to charge for any kind of derivative work utilizing the assets of a game that one did not own the license or have permission to, no matter how much of it one created from scratch. If it was intended for sale and use as a product, for a product that one did not have express permission to charge for tertiary products for, it was illegal to charge for that thing. One could receive DMCAs and lawsuits for violating that, and only now are companies realizing that there is a mutually profitable advantage to embracing modding communities, not only due to their own ability to receive a cut from the sales of monetized mods, but due to the longevity and increased game sales that modders tend to lend to the games that they create mods for. A lot of assumptions have been made regarding the reasoning inherent to certain aspects of the overall modding community, and a lot of those seem to have crystallized into accepted false truths in the minds of many people, and I think a lot of those assumptions come from a false sense of either idealized creativity worship or dismissal. That modders are somehow just these altruistic creators who subsist entirely upon their passion for their pastime, and while many do enjoy modding for exactly that reason, it's hardly fair or realistic to expect such from every single one of them. I've never understood this illogical mentality that so many seem to possess, that if one enjoys something, one shouldn't get paid for it. Just enjoy it and don't go to the dark side. And even as I explain this, I can hear the clarion call now. Modders who charge for their work are just selling out! Yeah, just like those damn developers! How dare they earn a reward for their work! The satisfaction of their passion alone should just manifest everything they need into their lives. Modding is a hobby, not a profession! Not true. Not anymore. Not as of this announcement. You don't get to make that distinction. No matter how much you may want to, if someone is willing to pay someone else for their work and the market allows them to do so, that is a profession whether or not you approve of the arrangement. Never mind the fact that many modders have used their mod content as a sort of digital portfolio with which to enter into the field of professional game development, and that several modders from the Nexus have done exactly that. And those of you who may yet disagree, to you let me ask you this as an extension of the logic at work in this discussion. Should those who create legal aftermarket modifications for, say, cars have the option to receive payment for their products, as vehicle modification is a hobby enjoyed by enthusiasts of the thousands the world over? Anyone who just answered no to that question does not understand the way the world works. Yes, of course they do. I'll state this as clearly as possible. No matter why you think a modder should mod, their motivations are not only irrelevant to the products that they create, but they are none of your damned business. Not only that, but the sort of personality types that it seems like so many are worried about, these supposedly opportunistic modders who will only create now that they can charge for it, are not the types of creative people who will actually produce the sorts of inspired high-quality mods that most people would actually pay for. Greed is rarely a sustainable motivator for actual creativity, and mods created with greed at their impetus will, as I mentioned earlier, remain easy to spot and easy to ignore. As with anything, vote with your wallets. However, those creators who now find that not only can they now receive the reward of sharing their work with a community they love, but also enjoy a little revenue on the side for their work, deserve that option. And I remind you, it's still just an option. Nobody's monetizing the entire workshop. And I remind you again that an immense number of mods will never migrate to the workshop at all, as they simply can't. And they'll continue to work on their projects as they always have. Now, might I respect a modder who continues to realize their creative projects and visions at no cost to anyone save themselves? Yeah, hell yeah, as much as the same way I'll respect anyone who selflessly shares the products of their passion with the rest of the world, but at the same time, that does not mean I will judge or disrespect those who choose to collect a more tangible reward for their time and effort. That is their right. At the end of the day, I think a lot of the complaints against this new system are coming from those who are simply caught off guard by the possibility that they may now have to pay for something they've grown accustomed to receiving for free, and that they've taken for granted for years. However, all that said, don't mistake anything I've just said for a sweeping approval of Steam's new system. Like I mentioned earlier, the system is still terribly far from ideally implemented, rife with opportunity for exploitation and misuse, and those aligned to receive the shortest end of the stick are, predictably, the creators and users. And that's not right. Little exists to protect legitimate creators from frauds and piracy, and little exists save a one-day return policy to protect consumers from faulty mod purchases. And I urge people to take a stand against that. Just make sure that you're standing against the right things. I see a lot of people discussing and arguing over this, and I know a lot of modders are torn over the situation itself, and I don't blame them, much less the impact of their fans' expectations, etc. But I see a dishearteningly titanic number of people, those very same people, discussing this issue with an incomplete understanding of it, discussing it and arguing points without the requisite information to make a valid argument at all, and even wielding conjecture, false information, and rumor as though they were truth, and that helps no one. Hopefully, however, curation will improve. Valve will devise some means of addressing some of those issues, however, I'm not holding my breath, and one way or another, things will settle into a new paradigm that allows independent artists and creators the option to either share their work for free, as they always have, or make a little something on the side at their own discretion. And hey, I'm always an advocate of mod support in games, and if other publishers note a potential for profit here in the coming months, it may lead to more games officially supporting mods in the future. And whether or not you agree or like that reasoning for them to do so or not, I can't necessarily complain with the end result. And I think that's all I have to say on the matter. I know I've likely made a lot of people very mad with this video, but I needed to say my piece on the matter. Like I said, it's an imperfect step in the right direction. one that allows creators the chance to receive some monetary recognition and reward for their work, but which unfortunately places those very same people at the risk of exploitation and assuredly will lead to an increase in the piracy of their work from those unwilling to pay for it. And which I'm sure will have other more far-reaching and more subtle effects upon the modding community as a whole in the months and years to come. But I think it's much too early to call some of those things as yet, as only a few publishers allow workshop content in their games at all at present. Until then, thank you all for watching. Discuss with respect in the comments, please, if you're so inclined. I'm Mr. Black here at Last Level Press, and as always, I wish you all good gaming and Godspeed. Oh, Jesus! Hi! And as a quick postscript, no matter what you think of all of this, if you're one of those who've sent the kind of reprehensible hatred, vitriol, and death threats I've watched dozens of modders receive over this, unsubscribe to this channel immediately. I do not want you as a part of this community. Consider this me showing you the door, and you should feel ashamed of yourselves.